Do you know what's even funny was that whole like montage towards the end where like Eddie's walking down the streets of New York and they're like doing flashbacks of like previous movies and stuff like that. And it was just like hilarious to me because I was like, you've probably made the worst comic book trilogy of all time. And they had like this whole like montage at the end, like they made some type of like cinematic masterpiece, and like it was like this like beautiful connection that Eddie had with Venom that everyone loved, and this that, and the other, and like the whole time I was like rolling my eyes.
Ultimately, like they put this at the end of a movie that is about nothing, and that has a whole bunch of different ideas that each individually could have been a movie. It just ends in nothing, and then at the end they put this, like they put an intern in charge of, hey, make a montage to nostalgic images. It's almost like the final credits of Deadpool, right? Where the entire credits is just deleted scenes from the last 25 years of Marvel movies, not just MCU, but all Marvel movies, right? And that actually is actually not manipulative. That actually works because we actually like those movies, right? And the entire movie has been a celebration of those movies, right? So this tries to do the same thing in this final montage, but there's no, like, we're not actually sentimental for those three Venom movies, certainly not for this one. That's why I think it's manipulative, because it's trying to leave you with a final impression of this was about something, and it doesn't. It's just stuff happening, and most of it not very good.
And it doesn't help that there wasn't a through line. There wasn't like a compelling through line of Eddie and Venom's story between all three movies to sort of have this like satisfying conclusion where you can like do this sort of happy montage and like make us reminisce of like their relationship. It just wasn't that in any of the movies at all for me anyway. So like whatever they tried to do, it didn't work on me at all.
And I have another way in which this is not like Deadpool, because this movie is getting pretty much universally negative reviews from critics, but audiences like it a lot more. I haven't looked up the Rotten Tomatoes score of it, but that's the basic pattern of it. And when people say good things about this movie, they say something like, "Oh, not everything has to be a piece of art. This can just be a wild ride. This can just be a fun romp." Deadpool showed us what 2 hours of having fun looks like, and it's not this, right? Like, what's the equivalent in this movie of like the opening sequence of Deadpool, where he beats up TVA agents with the adamantium skeleton of Wolverine, like to NSYNC music, right? Like, that movie had a whole bunch of stuff in it. Like, I had some criticisms of some of the fight scenes in Deadpool, and I think a few of them are a bit phoned in. But on balance, Deadpool has a lot of fun and creativity with its set pieces. And there was nothing like this in this movie. So if somebody enjoyed this movie, good for you, right? I wish I had too. It's just this whole thing of, well, this is a turn your brain off, have fun movie. It's just a wild ride with wild action and whatever. It's not that much. Like, there's not, like, I like kind of the river fight scene a little bit, where he kind of jumps into like 4 different animals over the course of a minute. The symbiote horse was kind of amusing, right? After that, there's not much. Everything else is kind of muddy CGI vomit. When I walked into this movie, I was totally on board with the whole, okay, story is going to be whatever, but let's do some crazy stuff, right? Because I vaguely remember, and maybe this is just my memory, right? But I remember stuff in the first and second movie where there's at least a couple of set pieces, somebody put some effort into that, right? And so I was expecting that, like, if this is your final, like, I was kind of expecting them to do an Aquaman 2, where they say, okay, this is the last one, and whatever we do after this, like, nobody cares anymore what we do because it's the last one, so we're just gonna do whatever. Right? Like, Aquaman 2 ends with completely changing the status quo of the DCU, and nobody cares because people have changed the channel like 2 movies ago, right? And this is kind of similar, where they could just do anything, right? And they could really go all out. Like, it doesn't have to be that, but they could do anything with Venom, right? Like, give us crazy set pieces, give us like the most over-the-top fight choreography, whatever, right? Like, we really make use of his whole symbiote abilities, whatever, like anything, pick anything. Right, and if it had been 2 hours of that, and it's just complete symbiote craziness because nobody cares because it's the Sonyverse, I would have been up for that, right? And I didn't get that. It's my thing. And so this whole argument of, but it's a fun action romp, it's not. I don't think so.